WWE's most unprofessional performers. Let's watch.
Wrestling is just that, a profession people put time, money, tears, and effort into. However, on occasion, the professional in professional wrestling is something performers can forget when stepping between the squared circle. These kinds of moments are often awkward or unsettling or downright unfun to watch. However, they still keep us invested if only to see what happens next. So today I wanted to take a moment and look at some of the most unprofessional moments in wrestling history, and really highlight what made them so polarizing. If you go on to enjoy the video, please do me a solid and hit the like button, as I've been trying to keep it professional here by getting out regular wrestling content for you guys to watch, which if you want to catch in the future, be sure to subscribe. Anyways, let's get right into this. So when looking around at different moments from wrestling's history, a recent one was what came to mind first. That being the infamous title swap between Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. If you didn't know, the Irish Lass Kicker and Queen had been best friends for a majority of their time in WWE, specifically during NXT and their early main roster runs. However, on the post-draft episode of SmackDown in 2021, it was made pretty clear to us fans that the pair had grown apart, so to say, as during a segment basically meant to give Charlotte and Becky the right color championships for their respective brands, when prompted to hand over her title, the Queen pulled the title away, making Becky look like a bit of an idiot before dropping the Raw Women's Championship right there on the ground. This by itself was rather awkward and strange, but after Sasha Banks came down and Charlotte further went off script by cutting a promo, it became pretty obvious that the segment was going off the rails. It would later be reported that Bex and Charlotte had a bit of an altercation backstage following the botched segment, where the latter was evicted from the building due to her unprofessionalism. However, during an episode of Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions, Charlotte said the incident was an accident, and that she hadn't meant to drop the title. But what do you think? Is this just BS? I'd imagine so personally. And while that was more so just an awkward and uncomfortable segment,
that sounds
if you turn the clock back about 19 years to SummerSlam 2005, we had a different set of unprofessional antics to talk about. As during the generational clash and dream match of Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan, it seemed that the Heartbreak Kid was playing some games with the Hulks. As during the match, Shawn would more or less oversell every single move Hogan did to him by bumping excessively and thus making this once-in-a-lifetime encounter one of the most memorable SummerSlam matches of all time for arguably petty reasons. Those reasons being that the original plans were for Hogan and Michaels to have—
I don't think this was mentioned in my Why Wrestlers Don't or Hate Shawn Michaels. So he was overselling Hogan's
a total of 3 matches across their feud, where after losing here at SummerSlam, Michaels would get his win back on the next pay-per-view. However, as Hogan does, he simply said, "That doesn't work for me, brother." And instead, the decision was made for Michaels to simply take a loss to Hogan, and well, because of this, he decided to make the encounter one of a kind and a true spectacle for all the wrong reasons. And while there was a ton of humor in that bout due to Michaels and his overeagerness to sell moves, if we take a look at the main event of TNA's Bound for Glory 2018 pay-per-view, it absolutely had the opposite problem. The participants were none other than Johnny Impact, aka John Morrison, and then TNA champion Austin Aries. Outside of this particular event, and more specifically across his time in the WWE, AA Austin Aries had developed a poor reputation for having backstage outbursts due to his attitude. So when he found out he'd be dropping TNA's top prize to Johnny, he wasn't exactly pleased. And well, after the match, as soon as the bell rang, Aries just got up, flipped everybody off, no sold the finish or any of the offense Johnny hit him with, and just got up and left. A lot of people assumed at the time that this was a work or some angle or something maybe to build into a rematch, but it was just nothing. Nothing fun, nothing exciting, just an angry man being angry for the sake of ruining what was supposed to be a major crowning moment for the new champ, Johnny Impact. Since that moment, Aries hasn't been recruited by another major promotion, and instead he's just been spending his days on the indies, and frankly, I reckon due to that outburst, if nothing else, it'll likely stay that way. Keeping on with TNA here, the next unprofessional moment I want to talk about is less than just a moment, and more so something that felt almost inevitable, unfortunately. You see, Jeff Hardy is a name that inspired a generation, a name synonymous with the idea of living in the moment. However, while that idea is to be conscious and aware for every moment, taking everything in, Jeff was doing anything but that during his scheduled main event against Sting at Victory Road 2011. You see, Jeff would come down for the match while very clearly under the influence, meaning that he was in no way fit to compete and put on a show for the folks in attendance and all the people at home who bought a ticket to see this first ever dream matchup. Believe it or not, this match was a massive deal in 2011, and because of Jeff's inability to keep sober, this match was cut unbelievably short, after Eric Bischoff called an audible telling Jeff he would take a Singer Splash and a Scorpion Death Drop for the finish, ultimately making so that this anticipated massive main event would be cut down to just 88 seconds, which included the aforementioned moves and Jeff drunkenly teasing the crowd on if he would throw them his shirt or not. It is one of, if not the single most disappointing main event in TNA history, and frankly put, this was just an unbelievably unprofessional moment by Jeff. And while this main event would go down in infamy for what took place on our screens, in the case of SummerSlam 1991's main event between the teams of Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa, all the problems more or less occurred behind closed doors. The advertised main event would be the linchpin of controversy, as the Ultimate Warrior felt that he was the biggest star in the match and threatened to no-show the main event if his demands were not met. His demands were that Vince sing to the tune of $500,000 deposited straight into the Warrior's bank account. Vince would oblige to this demand if only to preserve the credibility of his company and deliver on the advertised main event. But after this, he would have the Warrior stay home as punishment for his ultimatum. And this move would not only land him in hot water with the boss, but also the boys backstage, aka Hogan and Slaughter, who threatened to resolve the issue physically. Additionally, a planned feud with Jake the Snake Roberts was scrapped completely due to Warrior's stunt, thus nixing plans for the next several months. This act, while profitable in the moment for Warrior, was not something that held lasting success for his career, as because of it he simply wasn't an entity to be trusted anywhere in the wrestling world. And while the boys in the back threatened to beat on Warrior, at least that didn't actually happen. However, back in the year 2005, John Bradshaw Layfield happened to beat down on one of his colleagues for real inside the ring. Taking place during the year 2005, ECW One Night Stand was a tribute show to Paul Heyman's promotion, which had folded 4 years prior. This show featured a myriad of ECW originals and, generally speaking, is one of the most well-regarded pay-per-views from this era. However, the incident that involved JBL certainly dimmed the shine of the event some, as during the giant brawl spot in the ring, JBL would catch Blue Meanie with a stiff shot, which led to a further shoot brawl where the pair had to be pulled apart. Meanie would even be split open in the exchange, which would later be revealed to be caused by comments he made in an interview, which JBL took issue with, and instead of talking it out, he decided to let his fists do the talking. The comments made by Meanie were that JBL is something of a bully and other expletives which I cannot say without getting the video demonetized, but in short, it certainly paints that JBL is not the kindest person, which may have only been further proven true by his actions there in ECW One Night Stand. According to JBL though, he simply wanted to use this exchange as a reason to play off the heat seemingly between the two, but from Meanie's side, it simply seemed to be yet another case of that bullying and hazing which JBL in that era of WWE were known for. And while that was awful for a myriad of reasons, at least it was between the wrestlers. As for our last talking point here, during the October 8th, 2012 edition of Monday Night Raw when CM Punk was celebrating a victory, he went up the stairs and into the crowd with his WWE title. Now, it isn't uncommon for fans to take pictures with and unfortunately sometimes touch the performers. However, during this specific instance, it went a bit deeper, as this fan in the crowd decided he needed to have a proper go at Punk, pushing the straight-edge superstar and getting more physical than he probably should have. And Punk, being the kindest, most wholesome Chicago native that we know and love, then decided to reward the man for his bravery by smashing the fan with a quick blow to the face. Yeah, maybe not the best move by Punk here. Sure, this fan went too far, but as a professional, this was certainly not the kind of thing you want to do, and while it was very easily could have gotten further out of hand. However, fortunately, this would be the last time Punk would be involved with anything unprofessional in the WWE. Anyways,
you don't know how people react. You can't control that. I mean, yes, he should be professional, but you don't know you can't control that. You don't know what people have been through in their past. So it's like, I get it on both sides, but it's like, keep your hands to your fucking self. And if you get slapped, don't cry.
That's going to be all the moments I wanted to talk about here for this video. There certainly are more unprofessional moments in wrestling history, which I can make a part 2 on.
Yeah, that's gonna do it for this reaction. Make sure to leave some likes and comments down below. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one. Toodles.